Hi everyone. Welcome back to Fabric Developer. This is not just welcome back for you guys. This is welcome back for us as well. It has been a
Yes.
while. We had some plans, and I guess things just happens, and it has been such a long delay. While so many different things are happening in the Fabric space, but I'm very excited to be back here with MJ again. Talking all things Fabric.
Of
I'll
course.
hand over to you. MJ as well. Yeah, how's things? How have you been?
Yeah, really good, David. And I think it's just very timely, right? So when we wrapped up, it's probably around Ignite last year, and so many things happened there, and then we got busy both on a personal and work level, and like, yeah, just so much to unpack. But yeah, let's try again this year, right? Let's see how it works. Okay, so let's stick to it. Let's get on to it. And speaking of which, we got so many to talk about today. I want to start with Terraform. Okay, so Terraform, David, for sure you've heard about it already, but for those who don't, um, it's basically an IAC tool or infrastructure as a code tool, most popular around using things around Azure, AWS, GCP, right? So instead of you going to the portal, uh, clicking create new resources and stuff like that, so you just define them in Terraform, and Terraform kind of like provisions them for you, right? So the thing is, Microsoft Fabric itself has a Terraform capability too. Okay. However, there's a quick distinction that within Azure, there's already the Terraform provider available, meaning you can create things like Azure storage accounts, different things, right? Like, and same goes with the Fabric capacity. So when you provision Fabric capacity, that goes under the Azure side of Terraform. Now, when you do things like lake houses, warehouses, workspaces, and stuff like that, there's a separate Microsoft Fabric provider for Terraform that does that. And that's what I want to showcase today. Okay.
Oh,
Any
right. That's
questions so far? Yeah.
interesting. I guess probably just to clarify things a little bit, like so if, for example, in a medium to large organization, who will be actually benefit from this video? Like who is the target audience here? Obviously it's
That
beneficial for everyone. But who do you think will
that's a very good point, David, right? And the thing is, what Fabric is doing is that they are doing a bunch of things in a SaaS layer, right? Meaning software as service. Just like if you have access to powerbi.com, you can literally just create reports, right? Not unlike back in the day, someone have to provision an analytics server, blah blah, and like do the crystal reporting for you, right? And now with Fabric, we're doing everything, lakehouse, warehouse, everything on a SaaS layer as well. However, some organizations, and we're talking about like enterprise organizations, still want to separate what's an operations objective, an operations responsibility, and what's a, let's say, data engineer or data analyst perspective, right? So in some organizations that I worked for before, there's a separation of duty that, for example, a lake house, right? So a lake house is a data store, so it shouldn't be provisioned by a data engineer or a data analyst. You can just right click or left click on new item in Fabric and create a lakehouse, right? So in some organizations, that's an anti pattern, right? So that's why in order to do that, that goes to the realm of operations team. And for operations team, given that IAC and all of this automation is kind of like in their realm, now it just kind of makes sense that they can also do a bunch of this Terraform stuff within Fabric. So I think they're the most who's gonna benefit from this. Gonna first, as part of a prerequisite, right? Like for this to work, you need to make sure that you have an Azure CLI logged in, and ideally you're using Azure CLI as a service principal, not as MJ, right? Or not as David, ideally, right? And ideally as well that you're running all of these scripts in things like Azure DevOps, right? And it's not under MJ's machine, right? So something like this. So in the real world, that's how you should be doing it. I just want to put an emphasis here. But for demo purposes, I'm logged in as myself and I am using my machine in this instance, right? Then you need to have the Terraform installed as well. and you need to have an existing Microsoft Fabric capacity, right? But in this case, I'm just using the trial capacity. You can definitely do that. All right, so basically in here, we do have the main.tf, right? So I'm not going to go into the weeds of what Terraform is, but we have the main.tf, which is the main Terraform configuration. And then we have the variables tf and the output tf, and this is an example one um, for a Terraform variables, right? So the reason why you want the variables.tf is that, let's say you want to provision this capability just for dev, and then separate for test and separate for production. You don't have to write the script all the time, right? Like separately, you can just use the same Terraform script that you've already created, and you just parameterize that with a different variable. So you kind of like create multiple environments as part of that.
Okay, question. So let's say I'm a analyst, right? So I have got a requirement to actually store some data in a lakehouse, and I don't have the access to create it because even though it's Fabric, my access has been limited to only to certain items, so I can't create a lakehouse. And let's say MJ, you are the operation side of Fabric, and so I'll talk to you. Hey MJ, I need to create a new lakehouse, and at that point, through this sounds like you set up multiple environments.
Mm-hmm.
So you will have keep it simple. We'll just have dev and production. And so the variables.tf will store configuration
Exactly.
that's related to, yeah, okay.
Exactly. So basically, in this case, right? Like I just have one variable declaration for now, but basically, let's say the variable capacity name, I am setting it up as this one, right? The trial, so on and so forth, and then with the description, then workspace name, lakehouse name, and notebook name, right? So these are kind of like the variables at TF that then you overwrite as part of your creation process, right? So that means that you just define this variable, and then when you execute that, like for example, when I deploy this, right, this is how it's going to be. So what's going to happen is that first it's going to call Terraform init to initialize Terraform, right? And then after that one, it needs to create a plan. So that's why Terraform is really nice, because it's not just going to do things straight away. It's gonna come up with like a blueprint first of what is to happen, right? And just a quick tip as well, in some instances in Azure DevOps, what you can do is that after the TF plan, it's gonna ask for user permission to say, hey, review this plan. Is this all good? Then execute, right? So that's why Terraform is very flexible. And then after that, it's going to apply that plan and puts out the output, right? So just think of it in that sequence, right? Like from that, whatever you've defined in your main.tf, this just becomes, literally like, hey, this is the plan, and like, boop, like create that, right? So what's gonna happen here is that we're using this particular Terraform sorry, this particular Terraform provider, Microsoft Fabric, and this is the version, and then using the CLI for authentication, and this the capacity, we're using the trial. And then here we have the first domain, which is sales and revenue. So we create a Fabric workspace under sales domain, and the display name is data mesh sales domain, and then sales raw data is a lakehouse under it, and then sales curated data is another lakehouse under it, right? And then so on, right? You're seeing the pattern already, right? Like just creating a resource and like this, right? So you're just provisioning more and more resources as part of this, and then you have the main tree, product inventory, yeah, and so on and so forth, right? Then
Sorry, just slow down a little bit. So resource. So in this case, what is the resource? Is this a
uh,
item?
it's yes, correct. It's an item. However, a Fabric workspace is considered as a resource item in Terraform as well, right?
So
So whether it's
basically everything is a resource in a sense.
exactly, yes.
Okay.
So a workspace, a lakehouse, a notebook, those are Terraform resources, right? But
Hmm.
as we know in Fabric, the hierarchy is that there's a workspace and you have workspace items in it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But in a point of view of Terraform, it's just everything say Terraform resource. That's why the order matters. That the workspace needs to be created first before the lakehouse, right?
Right, okay.
Yeah. And then there you go, right? Again, I'm just kind of like creating a bunch of workspaces and lake houses and notebooks in here, right? So at
Hmm.
this point, what you're doing here is that you're provisioning a bunch of these Terraform resources, which is a bunch of Fabric workspaces and a bunch of Fabric workspace items, so that you as an analyst and data engineers, right, can get started. So this is not something that you would use to actually write the notebook code, right? Or define what a pipeline is, right? This is something you would do to provision a pipeline if you want to, right? But what's in that pipeline, what's in that notebook is then a responsibility of the data engineer and data analyst.
Mm.
So that's where the line cuts, right?
And I guess this depending on, let's say I am a data engineer slash analyst, that depends on where my access starts, right? So I can see notebooks, for example, but potentially I can actually go in and create my own notebook. So
Yeah.
so the Terraform part might just cover like the workspace creation, obviously, but also the lakehouse warehouse. And after that, so I might have the flexibility to actually go in, create a notebook, and start working. I
Yeah.
don't have to follow what's in the template, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, you need to define that as well, right? Like maybe, again, in some organization, it's just up to lakehouse level, but the data engineer and data analyst can use data flows, pipelines, anything, right? In some organizations, maybe it's just up to workspace level. All right. So, hey, David, here's a workspace, do whatever you need to do. Right? Or maybe it's in some instances where in like, oh, okay, we'll just use Terraform to provision the capacity. You, David, you're a capacity admin, do whatever you need to do. Right? So there are many
Mm.
different kind of like separation. Yeah.
Yep. I mean could obviously be a completely different conversation episode altogether because it's highly complex and there's just so many stuff in it. But yeah, I'll let you keep going with
Yeah,
yeah.
no worries. And there you go, right? Like this, one, two, three, four, five workspaces were created using
Awesome.
once you apply that Terraform plan, right? So, for example, the sales domain, right? So that provisions the workspace and that provisions an empty lakehouse for raw data and empty lakehouse for curated data and two empty notebooks as well, right? So if you go to the workspace settings and if you look at the description, the description is also here. The name is here as well. And the license info is using the trial capacity, right? So yeah, very like a good start for you or a data analyst or engineer to get started, right? However, what you also notice later on is that if this is created by the service principal, the owner would be the service principal, not me, right? So that's why I was telling earlier that the context is dependent on the Azure CLI user, right? Like who is logged in or who's invoking this thing, right? So there you go. As simple as that. Like, with Terraform, you provision a bunch of these things, and you have this. And if you want to learn more, Terraform, right? So there's an official Terraform registry that you can see. So terraform.io/providers, Microsoft Fabric. And from here, you can see a bunch of these things, different resources like Event Activator, Data Flow, Digital Twin Builder, GraphQL API, KQL, shortcuts, and so on, right? So there's so many different things that you can automate here. And again, it's all dependent, right? Like, is this required to do your work in Fabric? Not necessarily, right? But this is really a good tool to define and automate a lot of those kind of like operations related things. Awesome. So
Great.
That's it, David. Thanks to everyone for watching this particular video where we talked about Fabric and Terraform. If you have any questions or if you like this video, please like and subscribe. But yeah, for anything or any questions, feel free to post it on the comment section or literally just reach out to us. You know where to find us.